Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Edu Portal. Myself Shayon, and in this series of videos we are going to solve the questions from Engineering Service Preliminary Examination of Civil Engineering papers. So we know that in the technical paper, that is paper number 2 for prelims, we have total 150 questions. So what we have done is that we have divided the 150 questions into 10 parts, that is each part containing 15 questions. That is, in part number 1 we will solve from question number 1 to 15, in part number 2 15 to 13, part number 3 30 to 45, and so on. And so in particularly in this video we are going to solve the questions from Engineering Service Prelims 2020 Civil Engineering paper. This is set number A, and for part number 1 we are going to solve from question number 1 to 15. So we will see the questions and solve it one by one, and along with the solution we will also discuss the theories, formulas of the relevant questions, and shortcut method and approach required to solve this kind of problems. Okay, so let's get started and move on to the question number 1. So question number 1 is, when the deposit of efflorescence is more than 10%, that is deposit of efflorescence is more than 10% but less than 50%, then you will have to determine what is the type of efflorescence. Okay, what will be the type of efflorescence? 4 options are given: moderate, slight, heavy, and serious, and the answer will be moderate. Okay, so we will see how we are getting this. Okay, so let's see this. So for that we need to know what is efflorescence. And efflorescence, it is caused due to the presence of alkalis. Now when bricks come in contact with water, the bricks absorb moisture and then the alkalis become crystalline. Okay, and then when the brick dries up, these alkalis come out of the surface and forms gray or white powder patches. Okay, these are the efflorescence. Actually, alkalis that become crystalline after brick absorbing the water, and it is white or gray patch. Okay, now how to reduce this? So because it is due to the absorption of water, so if we can prevent the brick to absorb water, then we can prevent efflorescence. Okay, or we can use water repellent material in the mortar, which will do the same task, that is it will prevent the brick to absorb moisture. Okay, so to determine the type of efflorescence, IS 3495 1992 part 4, that is test of efflorescence for brick, it has given some types of efflorescence, that is nil, slight, moderate, heavy, and serious. So we will see a simple chart of this so that we can determine easily. And the chart says the nil, it is nil if no perceptible precipitation of alkalis, that is no perceptible deposit is there. If deposit is 10%, then it is slight. If the deposit is 10 to 50%, then it is moderate. Okay, and deposit, if deposit is more than 50% but no flaking, then heavy. And if the deposit is more than 50% with flaking, now what is flaking? It is the powdering of surface, then it is called serious. So as per our question, our answer will be moderate because the deposit is 10 to 50%. Okay, so we are getting the answer in this way. So this is question number 1. Now we will move on to the question number 2. So the question 2 says, Mohs scale is used for stones to determine, and the answer will be hardness. Okay, so we will see what is Mohs scale and what is hardness. What is Mohs hardness scale? As we know, hardness is the resistance of a material to being scratched. This is hardness. Now what is Mohs hardness scale? Now in Mohs hardness test, what we do, we compare the resistance of a mineral to being scratched by 10 reference minerals. These 10 reference minerals are known as Mohs hardness scale, with respect to which we determine the hardness of any mineral. Okay, so Friedrich Mohs, a German mineralogist, developed this scale in 1812, and a very soft material is talc, that is having hardness of 1. Okay, and then the very hard material is diamond, that is having hardness of 10. Okay, so this is the more hardness scale, and as we have told, talc having hardness of 1, that is very soft material, and diamond having hardness of 10, very hard material. Okay, so in between we have gypsum, calcite, fluorite, apatite, feldspar, quartz, topaz, corundum, etc. Okay, so different situation. If specimen A can scratch specimen B, then specimen A having higher hardness than specimen B. Now, if specimen A cannot scratch specimen B, then specimen B have higher hardness than specimen A. Now, if both specimen A and B are relatively ineffective in each other, that is, both scratch each other, so that means they have almost same hardness. So material A having almost equal hardness as material B. And then if specimen B can be scratched by specimen A but cannot be scratched by specimen C, so it means that specimen A having higher hardness than B and specimen B having higher hardness than C. Okay, so these things we need to remember. So our answer is the Mohs scale of hardness is used for determination of hardness of any mineral. Okay, so now we will move on to the question number 3. So the question number 3 is, which of the following conditions are recommended for sulfate resisting cement? So we have three options, option 1, 2 and 3. Here we will have the answer 2 and 3 only. Okay, so we will see how it's coming. So for that we need to know what is SRC. SRC means sulfate resisting concrete. Okay, so if the concrete is exposed to sulfate rich aggressive environment, that is the environment have higher sulfate content. So in such cases disintegration of hardened concrete occurs because of what? Because the reaction of C3A, that is tricalcium aluminate, which is present in the cement, it reacts with the soluble sulfate salts like MgSO4, CaSO4, N2SO4, and these lead to the disintegration of concrete. So to prevent that, we need to restrict the amount of C3A, that is sulfate resisting cement contain very low C3A, less than 5%. And what it does is it inhibits the reaction of C3A with the sulfate salt, and thus it improves the performance. So how SRC improves the performance of concrete is that it improves the durability of concrete and reduces the risk of deterioration by preventing the reaction of C3A with the sulfate salts. Okay, so what are the applications of sulfate resisting cement? It can be used for foundation and basement where the soil is infected with sulfate. Okay, so uh, it can be used in foundation and basement structure. And then for concrete used in construction, building or structure near the sea, because sulfate resisting cement has higher resistance to seawater. And then concrete used in fabrication of pipes buried in marshy region or sulfate bearing soil. And for concrete to be used in the construction of sewage frameworks. Okay, so these are the places where we can use sulfate resisting cement. Now we will see the question. Okay, the question, the first condition is concrete can be used in foundation and basement where the soil is not infected with sulfate. But we have seen that it can be used where the soil is infected with sulfate, that is sulfate rich environment, because it has better performance in sulfate rich environment, and it can prevent the reaction of C3A with sulfate salt. So option 1 is complete, it is wrong. And now for option 2, it says concrete used for the fabrication of pipes which are likely to be buried in marshy regions. So we have seen this in the application of SRC. So option 2, it is correct. Okay, and so option 3, now we will see concrete to be used in the construction of sewage treatment work. We have also seen this in the application parts. Okay, so this is also correct. So we have seen option 1 is wrong, option 2 is correct, option 3 is correct. So this is our answer, 2 and 3 only. Okay, so we have completed question number 3. Now we will move on to the question number 4. So question number 4, it asks which one of the following cement is a deliquescent. So the answer will be calcium chloride cement. So we will see how it's coming. So for that we need to know what are deliquescent substances. So these are the substances which absorb enough water and completely dissolve in it, get completely dissolved in it when exposed to the atmosphere at ordinary temperature. So these are the deliquescent substances, and this property is called deliquescence. Deliquescence. So deliquescent substances lose their crystalline shape and get completely dissolved in the absorbed water, forming a saturated solution. So examples of deliquescent substances are calcium chloride, ferric chloride, potassium hydroxide, etc. So now we will see the question again. And the question says, uh, which one of the following cements is a deliquescent? That is cement containing calcium chloride, because calcium chloride is a deliquescent substance. So the cement which contains the calcium chloride will be a deliquescent cement. Okay, so our answer is C. Now we will move on to the question number 5. So question number 5, it says consider the following data for concrete with mild exposure. Okay, so water cement ratio is given, that is 0.5, water is given 191.6 liters. So we need to determine the required cement content. Okay, so we will solve it. Let's move to the solution. The solution here, the water cement ratio given 0.5, water is given 191.6 liter. We know 1 liter of water equal to 10 to the power minus 3 meter cube, that is in volume. So water equal to 191.6 into 10 to the power minus 3 meter cube, that is by volume. We know the density of water is 1000 kg per meter cube. So we get the water by mass, that is volume into density. So water by mass is 191.6 kg. Now we know water cement ratio is the ratio of mass of water by mass of cement. Okay, so it is the ratio of weight of water and cement. So 191.6 is the mass of water and mass of cement is unknown. Water cement ratio is given 0.5. So if so from this we can easily get cement is equal to 191.6 by 0.5, that is 383.2 kg. Okay, so this is the answer. So we will check the options, and the options are 561, 472, 383, 294. So we have solved it and we get 383 kg per meter cube, that is the required cement content. Okay, so we will move on to the next problem, that is question number 6. Okay, so here the question number 6, it says the strength of fully matured concrete sample is 500 kg per semi square. Look, it is fully matured concrete sample. Okay, its strength is 500 kg per semi square when it is cured at an average temperature of 20 degrees Celsius in day and average temperature is 10 degrees Celsius in night. Daytime temperature is given as T0 equal to minus 11 degrees Celsius. Now A and B are Laumann constants and its values are given as 32 and 54. So we need to determine the strength of identical concrete at 7 days of age. Okay, so this is the question. We need to determine the strength of identical concrete having full strength at full maturity 500 kg per semi square. We need to determine its strength at 7 days. So we need to solve it. Okay, so its answer will be 333 kg per centimeter square. But first we will study the theory behind it. Okay, it is a very important problem, and to solve this you need to know what is the maturity of concrete and how to solve this question by using Plaumann's equation. Okay, so let's move on to its solution. So first, what is maturity of concrete? Okay, it is defined as the summation of product of age of concrete and curing temperature. Okay, so it is maturity equal to summation of age of concrete, that is time, and average temperature of curing, that is the temperature. Okay, and its unit is degree Celsius hour. Okay, now why do we need to determine the maturity of concrete? Because maturity of concrete helps to determine the strength of concrete. Okay, so we will see how it helps to determine the strength of concrete. Here is a small note. It says that hydration reaction can take place at minimum of 10 degrees Celsius, minus 10 degrees Celsius. Okay, so below minus 10 degrees Celsius hydration reactions cannot take place, because because the water crystal, that is ice, do not react with cement below minus 10 degrees Celsius. Okay, now here it's given m is the maturity of concrete, that is a unit is degree Celsius hour. F is equal to the percentage of strength of concrete at maturity m. Okay, it is a percentage of strength. So from Plowman's equation, this is very important. From Plowman's equation we get F percentage is equal to A plus B log 10 m by 1000. Okay, where A and B are Plowman's constants. Okay, so if we know the strength of concrete at full maturity, it's given in our it's given the strength, that is 500 kg per cm square. So full maturity, here it says 19,800 degrees Celsius. So we will talk about this later. And if we know this, then we can calculate the percentage of strength, that is F, for identical concrete. Okay, the concrete should be identical, okay, at any other maturity, by using Plowman's equation. That is, if we know the strength of concrete at full maturity, and if we know the maturity of concrete at any other time, then from Plowman's equation we can determine the percentage of strength, and from percentage of strength we can determine the strength of concrete. Okay, so uh, let's do this. So how to do this? So here is a small note that tells that ordinary concrete is fully matured when it is cured at minus 10 at 18 degrees Celsius for 28 days. Okay, so OM full should not be less than 19,800 degrees Celsius. Okay, this is not that much important, just an information. Now here TDM is the datum temperature that is given in our question. T is the average day or night temperature. Okay, and so TC is the curing temperature, will be T minus TDM, that is average day or night temperature minus the daytime temperature. Okay, so here we have a table. It tells that the strength of concrete is related to the coefficient, Plowman coefficient, that is A and B. So the strength of concrete has been divided into four zones: Z1, Z2, Z3, Z4. Z1 zone is for concrete having strength less than 17.5 MPa, Z2 zone 17.5 to 35, Z3 zone 35 to 52.5, and Z4 52.5 to 70 MPa. So for each zone we have different values of A and B. Okay, we have different values of A and B. So we will see the curve. So here it is a straight line relationship between the coefficients A and B, Plowman's coefficient, and the strength of the concrete. Okay, so Plowman has divided the strength into four zones. Okay, and different values of A and B in each zone. Okay, now here is another note: maturity equation holds good for initial temperature. Initial temperature of concrete should not be less than it should not holds good for the initial temperature of concrete less than about 38 degrees Celsius. Okay, so initial temperature of concrete should be less than 38 degrees Celsius. So if it is so, then the maturity equation will hold good. Okay. Now we will directly move on to our question. In the question it says the strength at full maturity. Strength at full maturity is 500 kg per cm square, that is 50 MPa. And A and B given 32 and 54. Suppose A and B not given. Okay, so let's see from the table. Its strength is given 50 MPa. So strength is 50 MPa. That means, see in this table, strength is 50 MPa. that means it lies in the zone 3, that is 32 35 to 52.5, and in zone 3 we have a is equal to 32, b is equal to 54. So suppose if a and b, that is Plowman coefficients, are not given in the question but the strength is given, if you remember this table, yeah, you can easily use the values of a and b for to solve the problem. Okay, now uh, A is given 32, B is given 54. Average day temperature is 20 degrees Celsius, average night temperature is 10 degrees Celsius, and daytime temperature, that is minus 11 degrees Celsius. So we need to determine the strength at day 7. Okay, so TCT, that means curing temperature for day, is given, that is because it is day, so average day temperature minus daytime temperature, so 20 degrees Celsius minus of minus 11 degrees Celsius. Okay, so curing temperature for day is 31 degrees Celsius. Similarly, curing temperature for night. So average temperature of night minus curing temperature, that is 10 degrees Celsius minus of 11 degrees Celsius. So 21 degrees Celsius is the curing temperature for night. Okay, so we get the curing temperature for day and night, and these are different values. Now TD is the average duration of daytime. Average duration of daytime, we assume that daytime 12 hours, nighttime 12 hours. Okay, so for 7 days total daytime is 12 into 7 hours. Similarly, for 7 days total night hours is equal to 12 into 7 hours. Okay, now M is the maturity of concrete at 7 days, and as per the definition of maturity of concrete, M is equal to summation of T into, that is summation of temperature into time. Okay, so for day it is the daytime, that is 12 into 7, and it is the curing temperature for day, that is 31, that we have determined. Similarly for night, total night time is curing time for night is 12 into 7, and curing temperature is 21 degrees Celsius. Okay, so do so from this equation we get the value of M, that is the maturity of concrete at day 7 is 4368 degrees Celsius hour. Okay, so to determine the strength of the concrete, we need to know the maturity of concrete at day 7, and we have determined from Plowman, from this from we have determined the maturity of concrete at day 7 is 4368 degrees Celsius hour. So we will use this value to determine the strength of the concrete. So let's see how to do it. So F is the percentage of strength for maturity M. Here M is 4368 as we have determined. So if we put the value of M is equal to 4368 degrees Celsius hour, and value of A 32 and B 54, so we will get the percentage of strength for maturity 4368 degrees Celsius hour, that is percentage of strength for day 7. Okay, so percentage of strength is coming 66.57 percentage. Okay, so strength of concrete at full maturity is given 500 kg per cm square, that is 50 MPa. Now the strength of the concrete at full maturity is 500 kg per cm square. Okay, it is given, so we know the strength at full maturity. Now we need to determine the strength of concrete at maturity M, that is at maturity of 468 degrees Celsius hour, and we have determined the percentage of strength is F percent. So strength of concrete at 7 days is equal to F percent of strength of concrete at full maturity, that is 66.57 percentage of strength at full maturity, which is 500 kg per cm square. So 0.6657 into 500, so we get the value of S7 is equal to 333 kg per cm square from this equation. Okay, that is 33.3 MPa. So this is the solution. Okay, so we will check the question again and see whether these kind of values are given in the questions or not. Okay, so in the question, okay, it's given as the option number A is given 333 kg per cm square, so its answer will be 333 kg per cm square. So the strength of identical concrete at day 7 will be 333 kg per cm square. Okay, so what we have done is that first we have determined, first we have determined the maturity of concrete at 7 days. Okay, then from the maturity we have determined the percentage of strength using Plowman's equation, and from that we have determined the strength of concrete at day 7. Okay, so these three we need to determine. Okay, so this is one of the most important problem that have been given in this year's ESE prelims paper. So this to solve this question you need to know the theory and you need to solve this kind of problems. Okay, so if you are making notes, please note this problem as an important problem. Okay, so we have solved this problem. Now we will move on to the question number 7. That is the next question. So the question number 7 is a sample of concrete is prepared using 500 gram of cement with water cement ratio of 0.55 and intrinsic strength of gel is 240 Newton per meter square. Then we will have to determine the theoretical strength of concrete on full hydration. Okay, so this is the question and the answer will be 104 Newton per meter square. So we will check its solution. So for that we need to know what is gel space ratio. Okay, so this ratio is defined as the ratio of volume of the hydrated cement paste, volume of the hydrated cement paste to the sum of the volume of hydrated cement and the capillary pore. That is the ratio of volume of hydrated cement paste to the total volume. Okay, so in Abram's law we can see that it relates the strength to the water cement ratio, but here it is said that the strength can be more accurately or correctly related to the gel space ratio. Okay, this is the concept of gel space ratio. And now uh, it is it has certain advantages that we will see, that is relationship between the strength and water cement ratio. It holds good for primarily for 28 days of strength or for fully compacted concrete. So uh, for 28 days only. Okay, but the relationship between strength to gel space ratio is independent of age. Okay, this is one advantage, and another is gel space ratio can be calculated at any age. Okay, and for any fraction of hydration of cement. So these two are the advantages of gel space ratio. That is, one, it is independent of age, and second one is it can be determined for any fraction of hydration of cement. Now gel space ratio for complete hydration. Gel space ratio for complete hydration. So here C is the, suppose C is the weight of the cement in gram. Vc is the specific volume of cement. So what is specific volume? It is the volume per unit weight. So specific volume of cement is 0.319 milligram per gram, and we here assume that 1 ml of cement on hydration will produce 2.06 ml of gel. This thing we need to remember: 1 ml of cement produce 2.06 ml of gel. So volume of gel, total volume of gel. So we have specific volume Vc, that is 0.319 ml per gram, and weight of the cement is C. So total volume is equal to C into 0.319, and so total volume of gel will be 2 C into 0.319 into 2.06, and that comes 0.657 C ml. Okay, so this is the total volume of gel. Now suppose W0 is a volume of mixing water, okay. So the total space available is equal to the volume of gel plus the volume of mixing water. Volume of gel, as we have found, 0.319 into C, where 0.319 is the specific volume and C is the weight of the cement, and W0 is the volume of mixing water. So this is the total space available. So if X is the gel space ratio, then X is volume of gel by total volume available or total space available. That is X is equal to 0.657 by 0.319 C plus W0. This is for complete hydration. Okay, so this is the expression for gel space ratio. Okay, now theoretical strength of concrete is 240 into excess cube. That is, here this 240 is the intrinsic strength. Okay, so intrinsic strength, it is 240 and X is the gel space ratio. So theoretical strength of concrete will be intrinsic strength into the cube of gel space ratio. Okay. Now we will study about the study the same for partial hydration. Okay, that was for the previous one was for complete hydration and this is for partial hydration. Here the only thing is that we have to introduce this factor alpha, that is a fraction of cement that has been hydrated. So we will multiply alpha with the volume of gel. So here it will come 0.657 C into alpha ml, and volume, total volume available or total space available is a C into Vc for complete hydration, and for partial hydration alpha is multiplied and volume of water is same W0, so 0.319 C alpha into W0. So gel space ratio for partial hydration is X is equal to 0.657 C alpha by 0.319 C plus W0. Okay, C alpha plus W0. Okay, this is for partial hydration. Now we will solve the question. So in our question it is said that C is the cement weight of the cement is given 500 gram. The water cement ratio is 0.55. So from here the weight of the water can be determined, that is water is equal to 0.55 into 500, where 500 gram is the weight of the cement, that is equal to 275 gram of water. So because density of water is 1 gram per ml, so volume of water is 275 ml of ml. Okay, and C is equal to 500 gram. Now X is the gel space ratio. Okay, we have to determine, and for complete hydration we have X is equal to 0.657 C by 0.319 C plus W0 0.6, and C is given as 500. W0 we have determined 275. So for doing this we get X is the gel space ratio is 0.756. Okay, now as per the previous formula, the theoretical strength of concrete is equal to intrinsic strength into gel space ratio cube, and our intrinsic strength is given as 240 and gel space ratio we have found 756, so it's cube. So we get the theoretical strength of concrete as 103.72 MPa. Okay, so this is our answer. Okay, so this is the way to solve this kind of question. This is a very important question from um, uh, uh, concrete hydration and hydration of cement and building material, and in building material construction, and this is a very important question. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question. So the question is the cement and water slurry coming on the top and setting is called crazing, efflorescence, sulfate deterioration, latence. We know what is efflorescence. It is the white patch that can be seen on the surface of the brick, and it is due to alkalis present in the brick. When brick absorb water, these alkalis become crystalline and come out of the surface as white patches. That is efflorescence. So this is surely not efflorescence. And sulfate deterioration, we know sulfate deterioration occurs due to the reaction of sulfate salts with the C3A present in the cement, and as a result the concrete disintegrates. So this option is not correct. So we have two options left, crazing and latent. So we will study crazing, what is crazing and what is latent. Okay, so here the answer will be latent. Okay, so how we are getting, we will check that. Okay, so let's check it. So first, what is latence? It is a weak, easily crumbled layer on the surface of the concrete consisting of water, cement and fine aggregate. Okay, it is a weak and easily crumbled layer. Water, cement, and fine aggregate, and that rises on the surface when too much water is added. When too much water is added. Okay. So and it can also be caused due to over traveling, okay, rain damage or poor curing. It is always present on new concrete, and it causes shrinkage cracks. It causes shrinkage cracks. Okay, and in case of concrete pavement, the top surface loses its wearing quality. Wearing quality. Okay. And in case of bleeding, only water accumulates on the top of the surface, but in case of latex, it consists of water, cement, and fine aggregate. Okay, both come on the surface of the concrete, but the latents consist of water, cement, and fine aggregate, but in case of bleeding, only water accumulates on the surface. Okay, now we will see its picture. This is latents. Okay, this is latents. You can see easily crumbled layer. Okay, this is called latents. Now we will see what is crazing. What is crazing? Crazing is a close pattern, narrow, shallow, close pattern, narrow, and shallow interconnected hair cracks. Narrow, shallow, interconnected hair cracks usually form close polygons. Usually forms close polygon on the concrete surface. So it can also be seen on the concrete surface, and it do not penetrate. These are cracks, but these cracks do not penetrate deep into the concrete. So deep into the concrete, so it doesn't affect on the structural strength of the concrete, but it doesn't look pleasing. Okay, so it is a close pattern of narrow, shallow, interconnected hair cracks, and it occurs due to drying shrinkage or differential shrinkage between the surface and the main body of the concrete. So proper care should be taken while curing. Okay, now we will see crazing. Okay, you can see these hair cracks. These are closed polygons. Okay, so these are crazing. Okay, now we will read the question again and check our solution. And the question asks, the cement and water slurry coming on the top surface. Okay, so it consists of cement and water slurry coming on the top surface, so it is easily said that it is latent. Okay, so this is the solution. So now we will move on to the question number 9. So the question is, polymer concrete is most suitable for four options are given. Four options are given: sewage disposal work, mass concreting work, insulating exterior walls of an air conditioned building, or road repair work. So here the answer will be sewage disposal work. Okay. So we will see what is polymer concrete, and then we will check the question again. Okay, so let's move on to the discussion of polymer concrete. So what is polymer concrete? It is a composite material in which the aggregates are bound together in a matrix with a polymer binder. Okay, the matrix with a polymer binder. The composite is made by fully replacing the cement hydrate binders of conventional concrete with polymer binders. So we know that in conventional concrete, the cement hydrates act as binder, but in case of polymer concrete, we replace this cement hydrates with the polymer binders. Okay, so what are the advantages of using polymer concrete? So it has long-term durability, low permeability to water and abrasive solutions, and has good chemical resistance. Okay, so these are the advantages. Now it is used for beach deck covering, sewage disposal works, etc. Okay, so these are the applications of polymer concrete. Now we will check the question again. Okay, so the question asks, polymer concrete is most suitable for what? So we can easily say that it is suitable for sewage disposal works. So the answer will be option number A. Okay, now we will move on to the question number 10. So question number 10, it says, which one of the following limes will be used for finishing coat in plastering and whitewashing? Okay, so four options are given: semi-hydraulic lime, conker lime, magnesium or dolomite lime, and eminently hydraulic lime. So here the answer will be magnesium or dolomite lime. Okay, so we will see how it's coming. So for that we need to study the classification specified in IS 712/1984, that is specification for building lime. Okay, specification for building lime, and here it has classified the building limes in uh, 6 categories, that is class A eminently hydraulic lime, class B for semi hydraulic lime, class C for fat lime, okay, class D for magnesium or dolomite lime, and class E for conker lime, and class F for siliceous dolomite lime. So here we can see that the magnesium or dolomite lime is used for finishing coat in the plastering or whitewashing, etc. Okay, so it is clearly mentioned in the IS 712. Now we will check the question again, and the question says which one of the following lime will be used for finishing coat in plastering and whitewashing. So from 712 we can say that it will be magnesium or dolomite lime. Okay, so the answer will be option number C. Now let's move on to the question number 11. So question number 11, it says which one of the following lightweight element will be added to enhance the protective properties for X-ray shielding motor. Okay, so for that we need to know what is X-ray shielding motor. Here the options are given: sodium, potassium, lithium, calcium. Okay, so here the answer will be lithium, but we will check how this answer is coming. So for that we need to know what is X-ray shielding motor. It is a type of motor which is used for plastering walls or ceiling of X-ray room. Why? To provide the protection against the ill effects of X-ray. Okay, so it is a type of motor which is used in X-ray room for plastering purpose. Okay, so the protective property of this motor is enhanced by addition of lightweight elements like hydrogen, lithium, cadmium, etc. Okay, it is a heavy type motor. Heavy type motor means its density will be greater than 15 kilonewton per meter cube, and for X-ray shielding motor its density is around 22 kilonewton per meter cube. Okay, and it is prepared by fine aggregates from heavy rocks and suitable admixture. Okay, so these are used for preparing of X-ray shielding motor. So from our question we have the solution in this sentence, that is lightweight elements like hydrogen, lithium, cadmium, etc. are used to enhance its protective property. Okay, now we will see the question again, and the question is uh, which of the lightweight material is used to enhance the protective properties. So here hydrogen is not there and cadmium is not there, but lithium is here. Okay, so we can say that the option C is correct, that is lithium is used to enhance the protective property of X-ray shielding motor. Okay, let's move on to the question number 12. So the question is which one of the following stone is produced by molding a mixture of iron slag and Portland cement. So four options are given: imperial stone, garlic stone, ransom stone, and Victoria stone. Here the answer will be garlic stone. So we will study about these stones a little bit and then we will see the question again. So first, imperial stone, it is produced by careful washing of finely crushed granite with Portland cement. So it is produced by mixing finely crushed granite with Portland cement. Okay. Second is garlic stone. It is produced by mixing Portland cement and iron slag. Okay. It is produced by mixing Portland cement and iron slag. And then ransom stone, it is produced by blending silica soda with cement. Okay, so ransom stone is produced by blending silica soda with cement. It is also called chemical stone. And then Victoria stone, it is actually a granite piece, and it is submerged in silica soda to harden its surface. Okay, so these are all the four types of stone. Now we will move on to the question again and check the options again. Okay, so the question is which one of the following stone is produced by molding a mixture of iron, slag and Portland cement? So we have seen this in case of garlic stone. Okay, so the answer will be option number B, garlic stone. Okay, now move on. Let's move on to the question number 13. So in question number 13, it says a round bar material with diameter 37.5 mm, length 2.4 meter, and it has a Young modulus of 110 giganewton per meter square and shear modulus 42 giganewton per meter square. It is stretched for 2.5 meter. Okay, so we have to determine the bulk modulus. So the answer here will be 96 giganewton per meter square, and we will check how it's coming. And here we have the solution. We know that there is a relation between Young modulus E, shear modulus G, and bulk modulus K. So that is K E is equal to 9 kg by 3K plus G. Here, if we put the value of E 110 giganewton per meter square and value of G, that is 42 giganewton per meter square. So putting this value, we can easily determine the value of K, that is bulk modulus. So from the solution we get K is equal to 96.25 giganewton per meter square. Okay, now let's move on to the question number 14. So the question number 14, it says a punch of 20 die is used to make a punch hole or in a 8 thick plate. So the diameter of the hole is 20 and it is made in a plate of thickness 8 and the force required to do the same is 110 kilonewton. So we need to determine the average shear stress in the plate. Average shear stress in the plate. Here the answer will be 220 MPa. Okay, so we will see how it's coming. So let's move on to its solution. And here it says that the diameter of the plate is 20 thickness of the plate is 8 force required is 110 kilonewton, then tau is equal to the average shear stress. So tau is P by A, that is force by area, and here area is pi d into T. Pi d is the perimeter of the hole and T is the thickness of the plate. Okay, so if it is the plate, so this is the thickness T. Okay, the thickness T, and it's the dia of the hole T. Okay, so if we put the value, that is P is equal to 110 kilonewton, that is 110 into 10 to the power 3 newton, and pi and D is 20 T is 8 So putting this value, we can easily get tau is equal to 219 MPa. Okay, that is the average shear stress is equal to 219 MPa. Now let's move on to the question number 15. So the question is, a reinforced concrete circular section of 50,000 mm square cross sectional area carries 6 reinforcing bars, and reinforcing bars having total area of 500 mm square, and the concrete is not to be stressed more than 3.5 MPa. That is, maximum stress in the concrete is 3.5 MPa, and modular ratio for steel and concrete is 80. So we need to determine the safe load carrying capacity of the column, and the answer will be 205 kilonewton. So now we will see how this 205 kilonewton is coming. So AG is the area of the circular section, that is the gross cross sectional area, that is given as 50,000. ASC is the area of the 6 reinforcing bars. Okay, and it is given as 500. And sigma cc is the compressive stress in the concrete. Okay, so sigma cc, it's given that it should not be more than 3.5 MPa, and M is the modular ratio of steel and concrete, and it is given as 18. Okay, and PS is the safe load that can be carried by the column that we need to determine. So for that, we will first determine AC. AC is the area of the concrete portion only. So we know gross cross sectional area is the cross sectional area of concrete plus cross sectional area of the steel. Okay, so cross sectional area of the concrete equal to AG minus ASC, that is equal to 50,000 minus 500. So AC is coming as 49,500 mm square. Okay, okay. Now for steel area AAC. So for steel area, this is area AAC, the equivalent area of concrete. Okay, so if steel area is AAC, then equivalent area of concrete will be M into AAC. That is where M is the modular ratio. So 18 into 500, that is 9,000 mm square. Now PS is the total load that can be carried by the column, is equal to sigma CC into AC, that is the contribution of the concrete portion, plus sigma AC into ASC, that is the contribution of the steel portion. Okay, now sigma CC in sigma CC into AC, we know the value of sigma CC. Okay, that is it should not be more than 3.5 MPa, and value of AC is also known. Okay, now uh, here sigma SC and ASC, we don't know the value of sigma SC. Now because we can write it as here M is the modular ratio, is the ratio of Young modulus of the steel to the Young modulus of the concrete. But at the same level, strain in steel and strain in concrete are equal. Okay, so we can write M is the modular ratio is equal to stress in steel by stress in column. So here we can write stress in steel, that is sigma SC equal to M into sigma CC. Okay, so sigma SC equal to M into sigma CC. So putting M into sigma CC here and ASC is here. Now this value of M into ASC is known to us, that is 9,000 mm square. So we will put it here. Now if we take sigma CC common from these two, then we will get it is equal to sigma CC into AC plus M into ASC. AC is the area of concrete portion only, that is 49,500, and M ASC, that is the equivalent area of concrete for the steel portion, that is 9,000 mm square. So putting all this value, we get the value PS is equal to 204750 Newton, that is 204.75 kilonewton, that is almost equal to 205 kilonewton. Okay, so we will check the options in the question. So in the question, the options are given as okay, it's 205 is given, so this is our solution. Okay, so the answer will be option number D. Okay, now we will move on to the analysis of this 15 questions. Okay, 15 question we have solved here. So here we have found that we have questions from building material and construction, that is 12 questions, from strength of material 2 question, and from RCC 1 question is here. Okay, and along with that we also have analyzed that here from question 1 to 15 we have conceptual and information based question 9, and then numerical type question 6, and assertion and reason type question 0. Okay, so this is the complete analysis and of discussion of from question number 1 to 15. Actually this analysis portion is very important, because whenever we are preparing for any competitive exam, we need to know how many questions are coming from any chapter or any subject. Approximately we need to know, and along with that we also need to know that how many numerical questions are coming and how many conceptual or information based questions are coming, and we need to prepare accordingly. Okay, so that's why this analysis portion is important. So here we conclude the analysis and discussion from question number 1 to 15 of this question paper. Okay. Okay, so let's end our discussion here. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and if you have any query you can send us mail in the mail ID given below, and you can also write up in the comment section and send us your opinion. In the next video we will solve the questions from question number 16 to question number 30. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. For more updates you can subscribe to our channel, and all the best. Have a nice day.